Welcome back to Ambivalent Offenders. This is Jamie.
And this is Erin.
And we're so happy to be back with you all.
Yay. Thanks for sticking with us. We know this is coming a little bit later than usual, but we've got a lot of stuff going on. So we appreciate you guys hanging in there.
Yeah. It's kind of that time of the year between sicknesses, holidays with kids, and traveling, and just a whole bunch of things. We do appreciate everybody for being a little more patient this time, waiting for the next part. Before we jump into that, we do want to shout out 2 new Patreon members. Erin, do you want to shout them out?
Yeah, we have Jill. Hi, Jill.
Hi.
And our friend April over at Dorky Podcast, which we've highlighted her podcast a few times.
Well, we are making an assumption.
So if it's a different April,
we apologize.
We're thinking it's you, April. So hi, we love you. We love the support. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You still have a few days here till the end of October to join as a free member, and you can access all of the content from Patreon, even as a free member, and it doesn't switch over. And if you decide to join as a paid member, we have those 2 tiers, the $3 a month, $5 a month. It just gets you different access to different amounts of extra content, which tend to be mini episodes. And then we also have exclusive polls, and we also have exclusive drawings. We have a drawing for a $20 gift card to a local bookstore. It's actually owned by our sister-in-law, and you can access the whole catalog online. They have pretty much everything. If you want to buy a history book, one of the ones we've recommended on Patreon, or you just want to buy whatever your heart desires you like to read, that is up to you. But we have all our Patreon members right now on a wheel, and I'm going to spin. I'm not sure if it's going to make any weird, not
like, how do I do drum roll?
I don't know. Click to spin. Okay, it's spinning. Oh, can you hear it?
No, I can't.
Oh, okay.
No. I'll pretend.
Oh, it's Diane. Diane. Oh, it's cheering for you, Diane.
Yeah.
So Diane is our winner this month. Again, we always have kind of random stuff on the Patreon. So Diane, I'll be contacting you over Patreon Messenger so I can get you that gift card. And then hopefully you can find some good readings, like I said, whether they're historical or not.
And even if you didn't win, you should check out your local booksellers, including Bishop. I don't think you mentioned the name, but Bishop and Wild. It is the name of the bookstore that our sister-in-law owns in Portland, Oregon. So if you are Portland, Oregon listeners, check out their brick and mortar store. I just want to say book. It's also a book and mortar too.
Yeah, also there. I also have a lot of events with different authors and such, so gotta shout that out as well.
Yes.
And now we can jump right into part 2. Erin, can you give us just a quick little snapshot of where we left off? I know you kind of left off with
Uncle Pope. Uncle Pope Sixtus. He was dying. Yep. He's dead. R.I.P. So we left off with him dying and Caterina, who would be his niece-in-law. Her plush life of Roman parties and all that fun stuff has been tossed into turmoil here in Rome.
Yeah. No more Pope parties. I know you left off again. She's going to have to figure out how to keep her family, I guess, in prominence if she's wanting to.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot to think about. I mentioned that this was sort of and I knew it was going to happen. So I can't say it's worst case scenario because he was going to die at some point, but there's the hypothetical and now there's the reality. And, between these interregnums as they're waiting to elect a new pope, Rome becomes much more dangerous. And we already talked about how dangerous and violent of a city it was in the first part. And now it basically goes into looting, the retaliation against enemies, anything goes. It's almost like there's not a,
government.
Because there kind of isn't in the Papal States.
Sure.
So for Caterina, and we talked for Caterina and her husband, Girolamo, it means the end of prestige and the end of all those gifts that had been bestowed upon them as the Pope's family. Their house in Rome is already pillaged as soon as the announcement. Yeah, it's pillaged down to, according to the book, down to its lead pipes. Like they took its lead pipes. People were taking the pipe. Jesus. This is some serious looting going on, and things were going to be dire until they knew who the next pope would be.
Like, people chill out. Take a chill pill. A pope is coming.
Yeah.
Not like there's ever been time.
No, that's true.
If anything, we've only had times where there's too many popes.
That's true. Anti-popes up to 3. We have had up to at least 3 popes at one point. But for Girolamo and Caterina, they're trying to figure out what's going to happen to their holdings, because their holdings were given to them by Uncle Pope Sixtus. So they're kind of scared that the first thing that is going to happen is that the new pope was going to want to grab back Imola and Forli into their possessions. So instead of sitting around and waiting, Caterina is going to make the first chess move. So girl knew that her husband's not going to be trying to do anything.
Instead of saying his peasant face, I was going to say pigeon face. I guess pigeon. Pigeon,
probably
peasant.
Say that too.
I mean, they're like kind of the same sort of.
They were throwing everything out about him, so I wouldn't put it past him to have a pigeon face. But we saw in the first part, she was just kind of sitting in the background, biding her time. Yeah. Now this is one of her this is a big set piece in Rome. So it's August.
Quick question. I mean, I know you're saying they're being preemptive. Is it really a risk that those towns would go back? I mean, so do they technically belong to the Papal States and they were gifted and so they could be regifted?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if they were like being overly cautious or if it was a true concern.
We'll see why it was a concern, because in the future they will not. There will be some back and forth, but for right now, basically what they want is Caterina, and to a lesser extent her husband, but again, he's useless. She wants assurances that they will keep their property. So we have August 14th. She's 7 months pregnant. In the swampy heat of August in Rome, Caterina takes the Castel Sant'Angelo, this massive papal castle. I say castle. This massive papal castle in Rome. It was held by the papacy. It was the mausoleum of Hadrian. If you've been to Rome and if you've been near the Vatican, you would recognize it immediately. If not, you can look it up. It's really recognizable. I'll send you a picture.
So she takes it over. So she didn't have any control over it yet. It's like a power move.
Her and her soldiers take it over. So I'm going to send you the picture right now.
So she's really playing major often.
Yeah, often. She's not waiting. She declares she's going to hold this castle until she had promises that her and her husband would keep Forli and Imola, their 2 homes.
I see.
I'll post pictures on the Instagram as always, but if you've been near the Vatican, you see it. It's very imposing. I believe there's a museum in there now.
Okay.
But it is very, very recognizable. Like I said, she declares she's going to hold on to it until she gets those promises. And if you didn't think that she was serious, she has the cannons pointed towards the Vatican. That's a pretty clear declaration if there ever was one.
Very often.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you might be asking what her husband is doing. He's doing very little at this time. He did say that he would send in his army if he didn't like the next elected pope. So good threat, but your heavily pregnant wife is literally holding down the fort, holding down the castle.
I mean, as somebody who's not very aggressive, I guess that would have probably been my move. Like, I'll see who it is, and if I don't like him.
He's just doesn't really know what to do, and she knows. She's obviously been in the background, but studying politics, and this is her move. It's very aggressive, but, you know, in this time, this is what you need. The cardinals are begging her and trying to make promises and being like, it's fine. We'll figure it out. Just leave the castle. But Caterina's she's refusing to budge until the next pope is elected because she wants those assurances from the next pope. So until she gets assurances from the pope, she's not going to leave the Castel San Angelo.
Well, I mean, at this point, if she does leave, it might be an even bigger risk of retaliation against her. So, yeah, at this point, I'd be like, I'm not hanging out here.
It's fine.
I made my decision, and
that's true.
Maybe a slightly irrational pregnant woman.
Yeah, you said it, not me. You said it, not me.
I've been pregnant twice, so I know.
7 months. 7 months. You're like, what am I going to do? Take out the Vatican. I'm going to take out the Vatican.
Fuck it. Fuck the patriarchy. And in the heat of summer, both of my pregnancies, I've been giant and huge in the summer.
August in Rome, which is swampy.
So no AC. I don't blame her.
They send in one of her husband's nephews, who's a cardinal, and he's tasked with sending a letter. He's bringing a letter on behalf of the conclave of pissed off cardinals. And supposedly these are the first recorded spoken words from Caterina because she's been so in the background. Now we have our first in history. So her words.
Fuck you.
Oh, yeah. So he's the nephew of her husband, wants a battle of wits with me, does he? What he doesn't understand is that I have the brains of Duke Galeazzo and I am as brilliant as he. Duke Galeazzo, to go back to our first episode, that is her father.
Nice.
She's saying, oh, don't you dare. I'm just as smart as my dad.
Right. I'm not a little woman. I know what game you're playing.
And of course, the cardinals are speechless and like, oh shit. No, what do we need to do? They really have no idea what to do with this woman, ordering them around and holding one of their freaking papal.
So what do we do? I was gonna say they're cardinals. They don't know what to do with women, but at this time,
they do.
They do. They knew what to do with women.
Yeah.
In other ways, but not women who take their vows.
No. So we've got August 23rd. She took over on August 14th. It's been a couple days. So August 23rd, an agreement is reached where Girolamo, her husband, would get money to pay his soldiers. So he's kind of gathered his army outside of Rome. He would get to continue on as captain of the papal armies, which would be, well, it would kind of be like name only, but we're not going to strip you as captain of the papal armies. And then, of course, the sticking point was that he and Caterina would get to keep Forli and Imola, their two cities.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
At least for the moment.
Yeah. And Girolamo, always playing checkers while the people around him are playing chess. He was like, oh, cool deal. Well, meanwhile, Caterina's like, I've got the castle. So instead of agreeing, she smuggles even more soldiers into the Castel San Angelo. Jesus. Which obviously causes an uproar among the cardinals because they thought that they had an agreement. And unfortunately, at this point, Girolamo's well on his way out of Rome. So he got the cash money he received as a bribery. Yeah. To quote the book, Caterina found herself publicly abandoned and humiliated by the husband, whose property she had just saved. Property she had just shaved. My notes. She did not shave that. Property she had just saved. Caterina was feeling the weight of her pregnancy and was frequently unwell. Bribes and threats could not move her, but her husband's betrayal and impending delivery did. On August 25th, Caterina leaves the Castel San Angelo, a sword on her hips, and she enters the history books with that one fabulous stand, and she'd never leave them from that moment onwards. They do get to keep Forli and Imola. But make no mistake, they have no illusions that they could trust this agreement that had been broached.
Right. It's not going to be a lifetime of we're good, but they're good for the moment.
And you think of the next time that next pope who dies, then you have a new one. So it's going to be the same thing. So we shouldn't think that they're elated with what just happened. Like I said, despite Girolamo being the head of the papal armies, it's in name only because the new Pope Innocent, he basically is like, don't come to Rome. You don't need to come to Rome. It's fine. So, and we know he got it. And we know he can't telecommute as captain of the papal armies. It's
not a remote position.
No, it's like we said we wanted you to get you out.
Your name's on the paper, but
if honestly for Girolamo, that's fine because he doesn't want to work anyway.
It doesn't sound like he's very sad about it.
No, but they are sad that connection and that glamorous life in Rome's all past.
Oh, I'm sure.
Not that they'd be barred from Rome, but their house has been looted. There's nothing there for them, and they're not
even pipes.
No, and they're not exactly going to be invited to the new parties.
All these parties.
And, they're old news at this point. But Caterina, she doesn't seem to mind. So to quote the book again, cast from the world stage to the backwoods, Caterina was not petulant. Rather, she embraced her new life. So she's okay with this. They're going to be in their little towns, Imola and Forli. That's where they're going to be. There is one thing, though, that she minded about this fall from grace, which I loved. The lack of good dressmakers.
I was about to say, it's probably the clothes.
Yeah, she's Galeazzo's daughter, after all, which just don't let the line of your outfit make you a prime assassination target, girl. So,
right, yeah.
At least remember that.
Yeah, wear that armor.
The money that had flowed before, and they had a lot of distinguished guests. Now it's a smaller court, smaller entourage, not made up of like the good and great, but more homespun local. But that's not to say that Caterina's star was dimmed. She's still in her early 20s. She's gorgeous. She has wit and culture. When she gets a chance to show off, she does. So when there are people who are visiting her, they recognize her. She's the star of the show.
I'll just say, even though she's hanging with now like B-list and C-list celebs.
Yes.
And she's hanging out with Joey Fatone.
Yeah, she's
sorry.
Joey,
I have to throw another
JC,
for all of them.
Yeah.
Not even Justin.
No. What is it? The 18s? Isn't it like the ABBA cover people from the 90s?
Oh, yeah.
Is that the 18s? Yeah. She's hanging out with them.
O-Town.
Oh, yeah. She's not getting the great and the good. She's not getting Nick Carter and Justin. But she's playing her role as Countess better than obviously her husband is. We already talked about that. Her husband's still really weird about going out in public. Which I guess, to be fair, he has had some assassination attempts.
I would say I wouldn't want to go out in public. I'd be like, I'm fine here.
Yeah.
DoorDash.
But she's getting seen. She attends feast days and events, and she also helps the poor and beggars. So they actually talk about the bubonic plague struck Forli in April 1486. And she actually goes around and helps the sick personally by bringing her own medicine, which she liked to make.
Oh, wow.
Food, anything to contribute. The book says many were shocked that the young and beautiful countess would be so heedless of her own health and life. But she dismissed the danger, claiming that she had seen the plague many times in Rome and noticed that those who die are weak and downtrodden. Meanwhile, of course, her husband's cowering in his home again. So
I'm sure.
She's out among the people. Yeah, is it smart to be going out among the bubonic plague? Maybe not, but she's fine.
It's very kind of her.
Yeah.
Definitely above and beyond what she has to do. Question. So obviously her husband is fearful of assassination attempts, which he should be. Was there precedent of women like Countesses being assassinated, or is that kind of
nothing? Not as much, actually, or at least that I've seen. It's
I was just
like
wondering
mainly
if,
the
like,
men.
Yeah, so I was would say, like, is she had a little bit of a different.
Well, there have been at least thoughts of. So we'll talk some to here in a little bit. There are some, if not outright attempts. There's plots against it, but
Okay.
yeah, I wouldn't expect it to be as great as for him. So
Yeah.
one thing good about being a girl in the 15th century. So one good
the
thing.
patriarchy. Yeah. Yep. Assassinate those men. Yeah.
Yes.
Not us.
Well, we know that Caterina was heavily pregnant during her stand at Castel St. Angelo. So she gives birth to this is her fourth child. It's another boy, Giovanni,
Jesus.
in late October. So she held the castle in late August, and she gives birth in October. But after the birth and sort of in these early months of like really diving into ruling, she does get malaria, which she's going to deal with that. Well, you think, in Italy, that's also what killed Dante. You're in Italy, the swamps.
I know. I always forget that is an issue in Italy.
Yeah, you don't immediately think of that, but it is. She gets really sick. She's going to have this ongoing malarial fevers throughout the rest of her life. So it starts around the end of 1484. After this first outbreak, she's bedridden for almost an entire month, which is a lot for her because she's really active. She loves riding and hunting.
And she's young.
Yeah. So she recovers, obviously, enough to resume her usual thing. Long enough to get pregnant for a fifth time. So it never stops.
Girolamo. Get off her.
Well, this is another boy. So, girl, she's doing her duty. Another boy.
I know, she's like, but now you're starting to get into that, like, again, I always feel like it's
the Philip of Hainault, Edward III's wife. Say it. I mentioned Edward III.
Damn, you on your deathbed.
There you go. Okay.
That's all. You couldn't wait a little bit longer?
No, men gotta mend, Jamie.
Sorry. That's a throwback to an earlier episode.
Yes, listen to our episode on John of Gaunt if you want to hear about that one.
You'll know why I'm so angry.
But this boy is going to be named Galeazzo after Daddy Duke.
Oh,
okay. But this is also around the time when she is pregnant with her fifth child that unrest in Forli and Imola are starting to ramp up. So there had been some action in Forli in October, and Imola has its own attempt at a coup to cast out Girolamo and the family. It doesn't succeed, but it must have felt like an omen of worse things to come. First of all, Girolamo's broke. So the money situation is not good. And it's causing arguments between him and Caterina, which is very relatable in terms of we can't relate in
money
terms
problems.
Of we can't relate in terms of papal armies and taking over castles, but money problems,
bubonic plagues.
Well, and for Lee, the reason that money's so tight is they actually had not implemented any taxes in Fort Lee for years.
Oh, good luck with that.
Yeah. To quote the book again, the people of Fort Lee had long been the envy of Italy and had for a time enjoyed the opportunity to prosper with few taxes and enormous subsidies from the papal coffers. They could only hold out as so long as Uncle Pope's allowance, and now that's gone. the allowance is gone. The coffers are not flowing, or at least they're not open.
And there's another thing that people of today can be like, we're going to have to raise your taxes.
Yeah.
Or in this case, you paid no taxes. Right.
Well, Girolamo he doesn't want to reinstate the taxes. Not because he's a populist, but because,
well, obviously people aren't going to be happy. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think, not from the kindness of his heart.
And
no.
like,
shit, these people are going to hate me.
Yeah, it would make him more unpopular, which is dangerous. Just ask Caterina's dead Daddy Duke. But the representative body of Forlis, they vote to reinstate the taxes at the end of 1485. So Girolamo might not have been the sharpest tool in the shed, but he was not wrong about the taxation moves. Within 3 months of that taxation getting reinstated, the assassination attempts against him are beginning in earnest. It's constant. The conspirators are getting caught, but it's only a matter of time, obviously, before somebody's going to slip through the cracks.
Yeah, of course.
If the marriage between Caterina and Girolamo had never been exceptionally close, their relationship, it really starts to worsen under the strain of these money problems and their downgrade in lifestyle. It becomes bad enough where there's a messenger from Milan, which, if you remember, that's where Caterina's from. That's where her brother's ruling.
Yeah. Okay.
So this messenger comes and Caterina just breaks down and starts sobbing to him. And we have a quote that says, "You don't know how awful things are between me and my husband. The way he treats me is so bad that I envy those who have died by him." So does not bode well.
Jesus. She says that to the messenger?
That's
or to her brother?
No, to the messenger.
But the messenger's like, I'd be like, I don't know what to do or say. I'll pat you on the head.
I know. There. Well, maybe he had some good advice. I don't know.
So that's what you want me to tell your brother? Or
back, like Nick Miller backwards moonwalk out the door.
I don't know. That would definitely be me. I'd be like, I don't know what to do.
Well, we know that sometimes it's easier to talk to somebody who doesn't really know. So she obviously was stressed out.
A little counseling session.
Yeah, and it's probably for the best. She does get to get some air, and she does go and visit her family in Milan around this time. So at the Milanese court, very erudite, lots of things going on. And for the past 5 years, a talented painter, engineer, polymath, 35-year-old Leonardo da Vinci's there.
Oh, I know him.
There's actually a thought back in like 2002 that Caterina might have been the muse for the Mona Lisa, which probably not, maybe not so much anymore. Still pretty cool. I mean, they would have hung out some.
Contemporaries.
It's cool to think of these all together. We'll mention some other painters and such later, but it's all kind of going on at the same time. And she gets to hang out with her family. She really hadn't been back to Milan since she had gotten sent away at 14.
Yeah.
So it's been years. But unfortunately, it's not too long of a reunion because soon she gets news that Girolamo's really ill. So she has to take off and leave Milan and go see her husband.
It's always ruining everything.
I know. He probably knew that she was having too much fun, but he does recover.
Fake.
Jamie's opinion. She does bring in a lot of doctors. People are like, oh my gosh, she's so sweet that she brings in all these doctors and stuff to save his life. I don't know if it's out of love. Who knows? He does recover, but he also doesn't fully recover. He'll always have bouts of ill health from here on out. We don't really know what's going on. They speculate in the book maybe depression or ill health caused by his obesity.
His pigeon face.
His pigeon peasant face. Any of these could be the reason. But this does mark a shift in terms of the power in the relationship because he's going to be pretty ill periodically from here on out. Now she's really going to have to step up. Here's another quote from the book. Girolamo slowly recovered, but he had lost the upper hand forever. Caterina saw that his lack of physical vigor and weak moral character made him unfit to rule. She installed her mother and sister in her home in Imola and prepared to take the reins of her life and her realm. And she never let go of those reins again. She would be in the driving seat, if you want to use another metaphor, for the rest of her life.
Yeah, that's kind of her time in a patriarchal society. Like that's
the time you're able to, whether if your husband's sick or if you're a regent for your son. That's kind of the one time women are allowed to step up. And do it in a way that men sort of approve of. Obviously, some men still have problems with it, but
it's more acceptable.
Yeah, if you're doing it on behalf of a man, they will allow it.
Yeah,
but as soon as the husband's better or the son's grown up, then you're out. But for the time, this is where I think of, like, there's a montage of Caterina rolling up her sleeves and diving into her work, writing in the dark. There's a candle. She has to keep lighting different candles. I mean, she really is diving right in. She's smoothing things over in terms of relations with some of those other city-states and countries abroad. She's just working her diplomatic magic. She's good at this stuff.
We know she's educated and
capable.
Obviously seems way more charismatic and able to forge those relationships than Girolamo may have been.
Yeah, she's really good at this stuff. But her husband, he's still hanging around and he's managing to infuriate almost everyone he comes into contact with, it seems. At this point, you get him pissing off the Orsees. They're these noble men brothers who had been his friends. So they had been friendly, but the details aren't too important, but there is some falling out. Seems like over a financial matter, but what's important is that the Orsees are now determined that the Count must die, and he must die soon. They're making plans for that assassination.
Yikes. His frenemy situation evolved really quick fast. Caterina be like, Girolamo, can you just do one thing? Just don't talk to people. Just lay in bed, do your thing with your pigeon face. Just like,
he still
you can't even have friends. You can't even have friends.
Nope. And the even worse is that the Orsees, I'm gonna love this. They get in on the plot. Girolamo's own bodyguards as accomplices because he had not paid his bodyguards in months, which is such a rookie move. Like, how many Roman emperors could have told you, pay your bodyguards if you're going to do anything? If you have any money.
If you have limited money, definitely not the smartest.
No. So for all those people out there, don't cheap out your bodyguards. You will pay.
Right.
April 14th. It was their time to strike. The Count, Girolamo, he has his meal at midday. And he's meeting with petitioners that afternoon. So we talked about how counts and dukes, they meet with their people, who ask for favors and want to voice grievances. At this point in the day, in the afternoon, the main square of Forli, it said, very quiet. After a busy morning of markets and such, the 5 Orsees family, along with the Count's bodyguards, entered the room to find the Count. He's just chilling by the window. He'd just actually gotten up from his mid nap, which he's a man after my own heart. Parents like, he's actually not that bad. I can't fault him for wanting to nap during the day. There are many things we can fault Girolamo for that we cannot. But he's a little groggy. So he's just hanging out by the window. But in seconds, it's all over for 45-year-old Girolamo as the men stab him to death as he attempts to escape. It becomes a bloodbath very, very quickly because the assassins took out you have all these people who are running into the room to see what's going on. They hear something and they're just taking them out.
Yeah.
One of Girolamo's bodyguards, one of the ones who was not in on the plot, but he peeks his head in to see what's going on, and his head gets cleaved in half when he went to look
Jesus.
in.
Yeah, don't do that.
Even the Forli chief of police died at the hands of the assassins. To quote the book, the vicious attackers burnt all his hair. So the chief of police, they burnt off all his hair, which had been his great pride. Bitchy.
Oh, so then he died.
Well, no, they because he died. Well, either way, it would have been, but that's just mean.
The extra mean.
Yeah, let the man have his hair and death. The townspeople have no clue what's going on, but they do know something's going on. This is where they start getting into the palace, and actually looting starts to take place in the palace. You have to be impressed by the speed at which the townspeople move. They're like, something's going on, so just start grabbing
Let's
shit.
get in the closet. Yeah.
Yeah, and the assassins...
Where's Caterina?
Oh, we will come to her in just a second, but the assassins... since they want the whole world to know what happened, so they throw Girolamo's now naked body into the main square from the balcony.
Ew.
It would be dragged, spat on, and some people even tried to tear it apart before it was taken away by monks.
Jesus, people.
Oh, Jamie, we've got a lot.
Italians.
Jamie, we have a lot more. You're going to get really disappointed by the end because, okay, I guess I should have said this at the beginning. Trigger warning now, but it gets worse. So,
okay.
That's why
I know, but it's only about like trying to tear somebody's thighs with your own hands.
The Forlisi, they are brutal. And and now I know you're like, yes, Caterina's useless husband's dead. But obviously, like you said, her future depended on him. And what is she doing? She's, according to the book, she was dining with her family when you first heard the sounds ringing out. She heard the shouts outside saying, "Liberty, liberty." And Caterina's no fool. She knew at that moment that the nightmare was happening, and it would be up to her to save herself and her very young children. Her oldest, who's the heir, was only 9. So everybody's really young. Acting quick, the whole family moves to another room within the palace walls, and they're barricading the door.
Right.
To quote the book, Caterina knew what was at stake. The smartest move for the assassins would be to kill her and Ottaviano next, who was her heir, thus removing the heirs. How Caterina responds in the next few hours would mean life or death. And unfortunately for her, the door is only going to hold out for so long. But before it broke, though, she sends a faithful servant to get a message to her brother in Milan, and to send word out to other places that she had friends, to help, basically. SOS help. But again, the door doesn't hold out for very long, and men, probably either related to the assassins or the assassins themselves, they enter the chambers. They grope her younger sister, Stella, who's with the group. Right. And I'm like, men, of course.
Come on.
Yeah, they're like patting her down, but
Yeah.
Although Stella rightfully slaps the man who assaulted her. But the palace is at the mercy of the looters. They're going to take whatever they want, and they do. I mean, if there's anything good about a coup, there's plenty of nice things to pocket. But instead of appointing a new ruler, Forli comes under the control of the papacy. Basically, the assassins knew that they didn't have the support in order to hold it. So they are like, Pope, do you want this? And of course, the Pope's like, yes. So
sure,
there's a bishop who's in a town not that far. So they basically send word to him. They're like, hey, don't you want this? And he's like, I'll be there.
Give me a few minutes.
How does this impact Caterina and the kids? It's not obviously great, but the bishop does tell their captors that the countess and her family shouldn't be harmed. I mean, it's the least he can say and do, but at least someone's saying it.
Right. Please.
Like I said, the Orsi's knew they didn't have the support to rule outright. They graciously give the city to the Pope. This Bishop Savali, he's nearby. He becomes the point person for papal authority of the city. He enters Forli on April 15th, 1488. Bishop, he does go right to Caterina and he swears that she would remain unharmed as well as her children. And the townspeople are pretty happy because it's the Pope. They were scared that another city, state like Venice or Florence would come in and take control. That would obviously be probably a little bit more violent. They're thinking, well, out of these scenarios, the Pope's probably our best bet.
Yeah, we got some shit.
The problem for the bishop, though, is that there's 2 fortresses that are holding out against papal authorities, 2 big fortresses. So they don't have everything. The bishop thinks what's probably the best option. He's like, well, we'll get Caterina to go to the fortress and ask them to surrender. Caterina obviously doesn't have any choice in the matter. So she's torn away from her children, and she would try, wink, wink, to negotiate with the keeper of the fortress of Rivaldino. That's the name of the fortress. The man who's keeping it is a man by the name of Tommaso Fio. He's a man that she installed there. He's been very loyal to the family, and he plays his role to perfection. Caterina goes. She pleads. She's outside the walls, and she's telling him, you have to give it up, please. It might cost me my life and the life of my children. And he's like, nope, I'm supposed to hold it for the heir. So no, she likely knew and expected him not to give up the fortress. It was definitely staged by the pair. She's really just trying to delay until one of those allies come, whether it's in Milan or somewhere else. Of course, this is making Caterina's captors pissed. There's a couple times that they bring her out, and each time it's no, no, no. One of the captors says, my lady Caterina, you could turn over those castles if you wanted, but you don't want to, do you? And he presses a lance into her chest. And she kind of puts the lance up, and she says, or before that, he says, if I wanted to, I could just run the spear from one side of you to another, and you would fall at my feet dead. Normally, I would pee my pants, you would pee your pants, but not our girl, Caterina. She goes, don't you try to frighten me. Certainly you can hurt me, but you can't scare me, because I am the daughter of a man who knew no fear. Do what you want. You have killed my lord. You could certainly kill me. After all, I'm just a woman. Of course, they don't kill her. She calls their bluff. She calls their bluff.
Like, you need me.
Yeah.
We used to at this point.
Yeah. And she knows that it would look bad for the Pope to kill her.
Right.
So I think, she really does call their bluff. They do try another strategy that does seem to get to her, though. They have a priest go into her room and confront her with a list of sins, both hers and her late husband's. To quote the book, the priest predicted the punishment of death by starvation, followed by eternal hellfire, which would be meted out to her and her children if she didn't surrender the castle. Horrified, Caterina banged on the door, screaming to have him removed. So she's a badass, still a deeply pious woman. So that's really scary for her. And the book also notes that it says later on that she would say that the words from the priest were more traumatic than losing her husband in the brutal murder.
Just like that didn't hurt as much as...
Well, luckily for Caterina, she still has friends, and she's able, because, she has friends, they're keeping her in the city that she ruled. She's able to plot with that custodian of the castle, Tommaso Fio. Tommaso, we love you, Tommaso. This is the dumbest thing. So eventually, Caterina's captors relented. They're like, we're going to let you negotiate with Fio. First, it's outside the walls again. And then he somehow convinces them, because she's a woman and they underestimate her at every turn. She said, let me go into the fortress. Give me a 3-hour limit, and I'll go in and I'll negotiate. Okay, fine. This is my favorite detail, though. So she goes into the drawbridge. The drawbridge goes up, and she, quote, raised her hand with index and ring fingers folded back and a thumb tucked between them before.
Oh, wait, she's giving the middle finger?
She had just given him the fig. It was the Renaissance version of the finger.
That's amazing. I was going to say, like, have middle fingers up.
It says the index and ring fingers folded back and the thumb tucked between them. Whatever it was, it's called the fig, and it's their version of the finger. All these guys, they see this prim and proper test. Yeah, basically doing the double finger.
Right. Be like, fuck you guys. And they're probably like,
where is this HBO miniseries? Because there's so many ones. They try to do the badass women, but there's your shot in the episode. Double finger.
I can see it with it. And then the men being like,
yeah, and then the drawbridge shuts. So
yeah, then they're like,
oh no,
what did we do?
It was so dumb.
What did we do?
Dumb. So 3 hours goes and goes. 4 hours, 5 hours,
doesn't come back.
She's nowhere to be found. The bishop, he's pissed. He's just shouting at her like the little wimp that he is. He's like, "Hey, did you realize if you done that, we didn't know?" I mean, to be fair, yeah, but they don't have Apple Watches. They don't have watches. Yeah. Maybe she just needs to know. Maybe her little girl brain forgot. She didn't forget. And eventually, Tommaso Fio, the custodian of the castle, he appears on the ramparts and he announces that Caterina's now his prisoner and that he would hold her until they did a hostage swap for some of the Orsi supporters that they had.
That's hilarious. He should also give the middle finger.
But the bishop just seems like he could not comprehend this. Like, he was just like, this was a pretty obvious plan in retrospect.
Oh, 100%.
And he doesn't know what to do, but the Orsis, they're so pissed. So this is where you make her into a legend. The thing that we usually say is most likely untrue, but I think it tells us what people thought of the Countess, that they believed it to be true, that they thought she could have done it.
Sure.
So
yeah,
the Orsis, they take Caterina's children, they take them outside the walls.
I was about to ask about our kids.
Yeah, the kids are distraught, they're sobbing, and the men have the daggers and they're threatening them. And Caterina's up on the ramparts and they're saying that they're going to kill her children in addition to her sister and her mother if they didn't get their way. So in this story, Caterina shouts back, "Do it then, you fools. I am already pregnant with another child by the count, and I have the means to make more." And Machiavelli includes a further update to the story where Caterina licks her skirts to prove the point that she can indeed have more children.
Like vagina.
Yeah, we can pretty much be assured that didn't happen. This is, you see it, I believe, in the Borgias. They include this as well. I mean, you always see, that's like the most famous. If you know anything about Caterina Sforza, it's her on the ramparts, lifting up her skirts, saying, "Kill my kids, I can make more." Primary sources for this event do not describe it like that. We do think that Caterina's children were there, maybe even brought out and threatened, like in that first story.
Oh, yeah.
But it seems like she wasn't on the ramparts. She wouldn't come out, despite the cries of her children attempting to get a reaction of her. Of course, matter, because people want to believe what they want to believe. And no matter what actually happened, Caterina would never escape these darker elements told of her. This is about as bad as you can get for a woman in that time or any time, willing to let her kids be killed for her own gain.
Killed, right. Feel like I could make more.
Yeah.
Was she actually pregnant?
No. Renaissance Europe wouldn't let her live this down. Even if it's unlikely that it happened that way, it's the Venetian ambassador who's telling the story who would give her that nickname that would stick to her, that of a tigress willing to eat her young to gain power. So that's where we get the Tigress of Forli. What happened on those ramparts, the kids do remain unharmed. The kids are not harmed.
Okay.
So the bishop's angry at this. He's very naive, but he doesn't want kids to be killed.
Not a good look.
No, he shuttles them away and he forbids the Orsis from getting to the kids again. Yeah. Not in the Pope's interest to kill children. And he even moves Caterina's mother and sister away from harm's way as well. But it's a stalemate in Forli, though. Caterina's in the fortress. She's not leaving. And the new Pope Innocent, he's kind of dithering away. He's not really wanting to send troops. He's just hoping the situation's going to resolve itself before he has to do anything. Finally, the Pope was going to send his own governor, who was actually Caterina's late husband's nephew, Cardinal Raffaello Riario. So the cardinal would be ruling on behalf of Caterina's eldest son. In this scenario, Caterina, she wouldn't be regent. The cardinal would rule, but
there'd be a family tie there.
True. So the papal army with the Cardinal Riario, they come. Instead of helping the other side, it's there for Caterina. So as soon as it arrives, they go into the castle, and the Orsi's know that the
papal army.
Yeah. So they're there, but they're turncoats. He's there, and he's going to support Caterina. The Orsi's know the jig's up, and there's this mad dash. They're actually trying to get to Caterina's children to kill them because they're no longer needed for negotiations. They're at the doors trying to get them, but luckily the guards that were backed by the bishop held strong.
Nice.
That means Forli's back in Caterina's control, thanks in large part, obviously, to her own skills and backbone of steel. Yeah. So now her son, Ottaviano, he's going to be the ruler of Forli, but he's only 9, so we all know who's really going to be ruling the place.
Not the 9-year-old.
But we got some work to do first, because we got to deal with the assassins and the conspirators. There's going to be no mercy for them, and they would not have expected it. Again, trigger warning, there's going to be a lot of violence.
Well, I mean, you threaten kids.
Yeah.
This
is par for the course. Yeah. This would have been, again, even the assassins and the conspirators knew that, the moment that Caterina took over, that this would happen. So the man who tossed her husband's corpse into the main square, he's hanged from that very same window. Poetic justice. To quote the book, and again, trigger warning for this next section if you're really squeamish, because things are going to get really gory. So, quote, the executioner swung his victim back and forth above the crowd like a grotesque piñata as the Forlivisi, so the people of Forli, claw at his body. Another one was essentially tossed to the crowd, who tore him apart like harpies.
Jesus. Some of these people and just tearing people apart. No, friends really have claws or something. Well, I just don't feel like that happens very often. In Italy, I feel like I've heard drawn and quartered. I thought was really bad. I did not know. I didn't think people just start ripping people apart.
Another one, a man suspended from the window, and he's castrated, and his organs torn out by the baying crowd below.
Jesus.
Well, the Italians are playing around. No, it's not even the word. Maybe I don't even know. I don't have any concept of which one's worse, but I think just one more than tearing people apart. I don't know. We'll have to vote to see which one's the worst.
What punishment would you choose?
The Orsi brothers, they fled, so no surprise there. Somehow they escaped for now.
Oh, they don't. Okay, I was going to say.
So their 80-year-old dad is there. He throws his sacrifice for this. And hey, he was also involved. He was a conspirator too.
Okay. As long as he was involved.
He's led through the streets with a noose around his neck, apparently cursing his sons, but not in the way that you would expect. Not for the bloodshed that they started or fleeing and leaving him. No, it was because they failed in taking out the entire family of the Count. We're going into punishments worthy of Dante. We're going into the next layer. I don't have to tell you about this if you don't want to know.
Now Dante's Inferno makes a lot more sense. It's actually G-rated.
Yeah. So this is Andrea Orsi, that's the 80-year-old dad. He was, quote, tied to a board with only his head hanging unsupported off the edge. his feet were raised as a plank was tied to the back of the horse so that his head lay on the ground. The horse was spurred to a canter, dragging Orsi behind it as the old man's head bounced against the hard cobblestones of the square. 3 times around the piazza, Orsi was dragged until the skull had been fractured, and Andrea Orsi's head was reduced to a bloody pulp.
Oh,
yeah, that's where I was going. I don't want pulp in my orange juice, and I don't want pulp on my head.
No. This is why I'm not into 1400s Italian history. They take it up a level.
They do.
I think head on spikes are bad when they're like,
why would you draw and quarter when there are so many other fun things you could do to a body?
We can rip your apart.
Yeah. Not great. Well, does it help that the Orsi women, they're not punished? She does spare them. They're given exile, which for all things considering, that is good as you can expect. Or in some cases, they're allowed to stay in the city.
I thought she'd maybe put them in a nunnery.
No, Isabella. Yeah. No, so this is fine. And yeah, the punishments seem exceptionally bloody, but this is par for the course for any ruler after an assassination plot at the time. So as much as I like to get into the grisly details, I don't want you to think that Caterina's here being particularly bloodthirsty. That's sort of what was to be expected.
No, this is the menu of selection. This is the typical stuff.
Well, that's why the Orsi brothers fled, because they knew what was going to happen.
No, thank you.
Well, Caterina does that, and obviously it's a very bloody aftermath.
Pinata party.
The pinata party that I would want to go to, but now at some point they have to move on, and she gets to ruling as regent on behalf of her son. Life would need to resume, even after so much death.
I was going to say, what are the people going to do when they're not able to tear apart bodies for fun?
They'll just have to do other fake pinata parties. Real pinatas. I don't know. Well,
yeah, it's either the bubonic plague or you're ripping apart bodies.
Spoiler alert, it's going to be a 3-parter because I still have 2 more husbands to get to and the Borgia.
What? Holy balls.
Yeah, not just about the other husbands, but don't worry. The townspeople of Forli, they get their blood in. They're not satiated yet.
Are they potentially vampires?
Potentially. It's all that malaria makes you do crazy stuff.
All those crazy Catholics.
That is kind of where I thought that would be a natural stopping point because, like I said, I didn't want to slam everything into this last part. I'm sorry. I wanted to spread it out some. And plus, it would be a few more assassinations, and we already got enough bloodshed. I thought we might as well, for the sake of everybody's ears and stomachs, that we would wait to do the rest part. We've only had one other 3-parter, but I thought this warranted it. There's a lot of crazy shit. I mean, we haven't even gotten to Cesare Borgia, so a lot of shit goes down.
The one thing I will be really sad of is that there's no time for me to listen with Mom to hear the punishment. I want you to tell her not to listen to it yet, and then record her face because you got through the punishment. That's all I ask in life.
Shout out, Mom. Please. I know you won't like it, but that's what happened. I'm sorry. Like you said, it is.
At least it's not dragons.
No dragons.
Our mom famously was the Game of Thrones, right? We were explaining what Game of Thrones is about, and her famous quote is,
"Ew, dragons.
Dragon. Yeah, dragons, ew."
Yeah. Nope. Not dragons. Just people. Is that worse? I don't know. Probably.
Yeah. I think I'd rather watch 100%. I'd rather watch a dragon claw up a person than people tear up a person. Something about because people don't have claws. I don't understand how you can
be a lot. That's a lot of force.
I'm like, what's up with your nails?
Oh, they're made of stronger stuff. They were more powerful.
I guess from all the manual labor. I'm like, I can barely open up a package of food. They're tearing apart skin. I'm like,
not even a shout out to our Isabella from France episode. It's not even a butter knife, which you were already confused about somebody decapitating somebody with a butter knife.
I know.
No. With just the fingers. At least that's what it says. I don't know. Everybody had knives on them back then, so they probably have knives involved too. That just reminds me of Lion in Winter. Favorite movies where there's like somebody grabs a knife and they're like, he has a knife, and they're like, of course he has knives. I forget what she says. It's like, it's the 12th century. Everybody has knives.
What? Jesus. I don't know. Something about ripping people apart. I'm sorry. Like I said, I can barely open a chip bag with like the perforated spot. I gotta use my teeth. God, now I'm thinking of them using their teeth. Okay.
It was just like that. But they didn't have chip bags, so they had to settle for convicted criminals. That was their version of their chip bag.
They didn't have Game of Thrones and Dragons.
They didn't have this was their entertainment.
You survived the plague, you're like, I'm going all out.
Pinata, baby.
Pinata party. I'll never look at a pinata the same again.
I know. Like, when I saw that in the book, I was like, it was a gasp.
But the Italians, they are very dramatic. Like you said, that was a very dramatic choice.
Normally, I'd be like, oh, yeah. What could you possibly put in a third part? Oh, baby. There's still a lot. Like, at least one more assassination, at least. And more bloodshed.
I want to know who came up with these punishments. Like the board with the horse.
Some sick fuck. Probably.
Like I said, it makes Dante.
Yeah, it does. It does put that into perspective. Doesn't it? This would have been.
It's like
this would have been like
a bedtime story.
Like a century and a half, 2 centuries after him.
But it only got bloodier.
Or maybe they just open the list and they're like, I want that one. Like, it's a menu. Let's do that one.
That's like, how do they choose?
Yeah, it's like a wine list. They put it in front of them and they're like, which punishment do you want? And you just choose.
You get to choose, or the executioner's like, what am I feeling like? What am I feeling? Oh, I'm feeling dragon the head, pulp.
Yeah.
A pulpy head, yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
I feel like, what?
I got a thumbs down.
Oh, no.
Who's thumbs downing me? Like, do you see that?
I don't know. Mine doesn't.
I know, but who's somebody watching me?
No.
So I was like doing that.
Well, maybe you accidentally did, like.
Somebody is like, no, last week it was very sweet hearts. And now it's giving me a thumbs down, but then a thumbs up. So, oh, look.
What? Why isn't celebrating?
Double thumbs up.
Can't get one fucking heart? Just one. Come on,
now you might as well go tear somebody apart.
I know, I'm going to. Now I know the rage in which you need to be, the mindset you need to be to tear somebody apart. Okay, well, it's not going to work. Do you want to sign off?
Yeah. So we'll be back with part 3, final part, probably in the next few days. So before Sunday, sometime as of midweek, we will finish up the saga. Definitely stay tuned. I have no idea what's coming next. I don't think I want to know what's coming next,
or you don't, but it's going to be good. This was a chapter of her life, but we haven't even gotten to even some more of the juicier stuff. So
don't mention juicy.
Some juicy, really juicy pinata stuff. Pulp. Extra pulp. No, I can't promise that next week will be extra pulp, but maybe.
That's okay. I'm okay with that. We can have one of the parts without any pulp.
No.
Well, thank you, everybody. And again, thank you, Diane, for winning our giveaway on Patreon. And remember, for everybody else, you still have a few days to join, and you can either be a free or paid member on Patreon and access all our content on Patreon until November. Then there'll just be some things. There'll still be occasional things open to free members. So again, there's still an incentive to join us there, but there's also that additional stuff for paid members. And of course, follow us on Instagram to get the kind of latest, newest information about when episodes are going to drop, new figures who are coming up, anything like that. And we love a good rating, a good review, a like. So for those out there listening who've been fans of the show and have listened to us, we would love to hear from you, whether that's giving us 5 stars, hopefully, and wherever you listen, or typing up a short review.
And if you hate us, then just scroll past. Don't worry about it. It's fine. No need to tell us about our voices. We're cool. We get it.
We're not everybody's brunch. A couple of orange juice. Bulky orange juice. So we'll be back again with part 3. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.